And now to the south suburbs, where police say a near 60-year-old murder mystery is now solved. 18-year-old Karen Snyder was found dead in her Calumet City home back in 1966. She'd been stabbed more than 120 times. Her infant daughter was left unharmed in her crib. Christian Farr tells us how police found the man they say did it so many years later.
I said out loud, "Mom and Dad, we got him."
Paula Larson says she uttered those words at her mother Karen Snyder's gravesite after Calumet City police made an arrest in a nearly 60-year-old cold case murder. Back in 1966, 18-year-old Snyder had been stabbed more than 120 times inside of the Calumet City home Snyder shared with her husband.
The detectives back then did a phenomenal job at recovering, locating and preserving the evidence from that date and time.
58 years ago, that evidence led detectives to arrest James Barbier, a family friend. But that arrest did not lead to any charges. In 2022, family member Kevin Seeley decided to make a call to the Calumet City Police Department and inquire about the case after hearing about it multiple times from his now deceased grandmother.
There's a 1966 Karen Snyder case, and all right, we'll look into it, and they actually did, so. Did a good job.
What those detectives did was to test all the blood evidence they had, and those tests connected Barbier's DNA to the murder. The now 79-year-old was arrested in Missouri and brought back to Illinois to face murder charges.
I'm still on with my family, a journey to justice. It's not over, but we're closer than we ever were in 57 years.
Snyder's daughter says back in 2009, she tried to get more attention drawn to this cold case, but says that never happened because she was raising a family at that time. She says her father also tried to get this case solved and says he worked on it until the time of his death.
I believe my father died way early because of this.
Barbier was released from custody after his first court appearance. He will go back before a judge on May 21st. Christian Farr, NBC5 News.
On April 29th, Calumet City detectives, with the assistance from the St. Louis County Police Department, arrested James Barbier at his home in Creve Coeur, Missouri, for the 1966 murder of Karen Snyder. Karen Snyder was stabbed more than 120 times on November 12, 1966. On that date, at approximately 11:10 p.m., Calumet City Police responded to a residence in the 400 block of Wilson Avenue, where they found the deceased body of Karen Snyder. In December of 22, Calumet City detectives received an inquiry about the status of this case. Detective Sergeant Asher Dimitrov and Detective Sergeant Kevin Rapaz began to re-examine the case. They spent the next 16 months analyzing evidence and locating and re-interviewing witnesses. Their investigation confirmed that Barbier was a suspect in the murder. Evidence that was recovered from the scene in 1966 was sent to the Illinois State Police Crime Lab. With the advancements in technology, that evidence matched the DNA of Barbier. And Barbier is scheduled for his next court appearance on May 21st, 2024 at the Cook County Courthouse in Markham, Illinois.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Today is an important day in Calumet City history, just as it was important on November 12, 1966. Our mayor at the time, Mr. Nowak, and the detectives did a great job of preserving evidence. And we have to give credit not only to the family, but also to the detectives that we have here today that not only helped solve this case, but if it wasn't for their hard work, we wouldn't be here. We know our police department works hard. We know that getting a phone call and following up on that phone call is important, just as it is important to this family. And I want to thank the family and give my heartfelt prayers to the family. We know that this was important to you and your mother. It was important to the family. Although the story is not finished yet, we know we have to be here for the family. And the city of Calumet City will be here for the family as we extend our arm and we extend all of the power of our police department and all the power of our city government. We know that God is good and God will protect this family and protect your mother, your father, and protect this family and allow y'all to have more family reunions and discuss the importance of today and also allow you some healing. There's some parts of me that feel this gentleman has not come fully to justice because he's free. The family still has to look at him and realize that he's free, and until he's behind bars and until he gets his full justice, we know we're going to continue to hold the family up, and we're going to continue to hold our police department up. I want to thank everyone for coming today. I'm going to turn it back over to our chief. I also want to mention we have standing with us Alderman Anthony Smith from the city of Calumet City to not only give his words of prayers to the family, but also all of our assistant chiefs, as well as I'm sure the chief will introduce them. Thank you guys. I'll turn it back over to the chief.
Before we move on to the family, I'd like to recognize, I recognized already Detective Sergeant Asher Dimitrov, who's behind me here, Detective Sergeant Kevin Rapaz. Off to the right here, we have Assistant Chief Keith Kwiatkowski, Assistant Chief Andre Black, and Commander of Detectives Casey Erickson, who supervised this investigation. And I think at this time we're going to turn it over to Paula. Were you going to say a few words?
Sure. Just come up and spell out your first and last name. We know your relationship, but if you can just let the press know your relationship, Ms. Snyder.
Paula Larson, Larson, daughter. Very thankful for the phone call that Kevin Seeley made in 2022, that the two investigators picked up the file, ran with it, and now we are here. I'm still on, with my family, a journey to justice. It's not over, but we're closer than we ever were in 57 years. Very thankful to Cal City, the department, the gentlemen, all the gentlemen, and the three that started this ball rolling. The one that made the phone call and the two that took the case with the preservation of everything for 57 years and put that man where he should be. Thank you.
Any other family member would like to come forward?
Uncle Bill, you want to talk?
No, I'm fine.
What about our caller?
How about Kevin?
Kevin, come on, Kevin.
Come on, Kevin, just say hello.
Yeah.
Just say one comment about calling.
Kevin, you just spell out your first and last name and your relationship.
Kevin Seeley. Thank you to the detectives, to the family for never giving up hope. To all other families that are in a situation like this, don't give up hope. Keep calling. Eventually we'll find out who committed these crimes. Even if it is 57 years later, you will be caught. And that's about it.
Good, Chief, you may want to come back. Dane, Sean, you may have some questions.
Chief or Kevin,
You did good.
yeah, Kevin, you did a good job. Don't worry about that. What led to this phone call after, at that time, 55 years? Kevin wants to talk about that?
He's asking you.
What's that?
You're obviously not 55 years old.
Thank you, yeah, no.
What led to that phone call? Tell me.
Sitting at a
You have to
kitchen
tell
table
my
with my grandma.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Sitting at a kitchen table with my grandma, she would always speak about this case, and it just basically haunted her to the day she died. She would always talk about, so my grandpa is cousins with Karen's father. I never met them until today, but she always spoke of it. And someone that committed something like this should be caught or at least looked into. So
And what did your grandma say? All those years?
she just talked about what happened and how he was never caught and how he needed to be caught. So I just figured might as well make a phone call, see if get a ball rolling. Who knows?
Tell me about that.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that phone call, what prompted it and what kind of response you got.
Just my grandma. I probably heard the story like 5 times, so I just was all right. I'm just gonna call. I was at work one day and I was reading up on it. And I was like, all right, well, you know, maybe after 57 years, some sort of technology can be used to figure out who committed the crime. because I read up on another story. I think it was Golden State Killer. They caught him with genealogy, so maybe you could do that. I don't know. Who knows? Anything can happen, I guess.
Was Grandma saying Mr. Barbier's name at the time? What
I don't
was
think
saying
she knew
about
the
it?
name.
What was that?
I don't think she knew the name, but she always said there was one guy that they always suspected did it. So they didn't know the name, they didn't know who he was. They were never close to him, but they always suspected that one person did it, but they just never had proof.
You were in contact with police while they were investigating, or did you just kind of give them the initial push and then they came back to you later and said, hey, here's what we have?
I called in December 2022, and then I didn't hear back until Friday. They called me this Friday and said, hey, we want to meet up with you. We want to talk to you about something. I was like, okay, I don't know any information. Like, no, we just want to talk to you for a little bit. So met up with them for, I don't know, an hour and a half and just sat and talked about it, which was pretty cool.
What was your reaction?
Oh, this is insane. It's insane that he was finally caught. It hasn't really hit me until like Saturday night when I was finally like had the downtime and I was like, this is actually huge.
Huge.
I mean, it's over half a century old. Finally get some closure for the family too. That's the biggest part.
Could we talk, because you didn't have a name, but you just made a phone call saying my grandma said there's one person and you should look into it, or what? Like,
No, just I knew the name of the case. And I just called and asked about it, and they took it from there. They did all the work. There's a 1966 Karen Snyder case, and all right, we'll look into it, and they actually did. So they did a good job. They deserve all the credit. They did all the legwork.
Chief or detectives, can you tell us how that phone call without a name, but a case, kind of led you to a suburb of St. Louis?
Yeah, so the phone call itself reinitiated took another look at the investigation. And from there, they reviewed the case, they examined all the evidence. They went out and they re-interviewed witnesses, which was difficult because this case is 57 years old. But they went out and re-interviewed people that had knowledge of the case at the time, which kind of confirmed the initial thoughts from the investigators in 1966 that Barbier was a suspect. The detectives back then did a phenomenal job at recovering, locating, and preserving the evidence from that date and time. That evidence was then used to identify Barbier through a DNA match.
Chief, can you talk a little bit about what evidence was there in terms of case files, clothing, evidence? What did you guys still have in your possession?
All the evidence was still there. So there was a lot of blood evidence. There was multiple pieces of physical evidence that were recovered back then, and then obviously the case file. And it was they did a good job documenting the case back then too. We kind of all talked about that it's amazing how detailed they were when they documented the case.
Were any of the investigators from that time still alive or could be contacted?
I don't think so.
Not from here.
No, not from here. There was one from Chicago, and I think the crime lab.
Apologies for coming in late, but is there a reason why December why the month of December? Anything you can talk about exactly why, what led to that opening in December?
Yeah, so we discussed that before you got in here. So in December of 22, we received an inquiry about the case. At that point, detectives began to re-examine the case, analyzing evidence, and locating and re-interviewing witnesses. And they spent the next 16 months doing so.
We talked to the detectives who were on this case for a second.
Well, they may have to be testifying in court, so they will have to testify in court. So it's typically not a good idea to do that. We don't want to compromise the prosecution.
Yeah, or maybe you can speak on their behalf, what Mr. Barbier's reaction was after all this time, how they found him and what he said and any interactions they may have had.
Yeah, I think that's a safe question to answer. If you want to answer that, what his reaction was.
Step up. Just spell out your first and last name, detective. I know you don't like it.
That's right. Kevin Rapaz, R-A-P-A-C-Z. And what was your question again?
Yeah, when you went to his home, did you call him or talk to him ahead of time, or did you just go to his house for the DNA evidence? When did you first interact?
Our first interaction with him was in April of 23. And at that point was an initial interview, and we obtained a DNA swab from him. And then our next interaction wasn't until the 29th
What
of
was
April.
did you just kind of cold call him and
Nope,
what he said?
we just knocked on the door and had a quick conversation with him, and then escorted him out.
Did he seem surprised,
Oh,
or
absolutely.
did he say anything incriminating against himself at the time?
Well, I can't get into the details of the conversation, but we had a lengthy talk.
Did you get the sense that maybe he knew this day might be coming?
I think so, yes.
How so?
Just based on our interaction with him. So, yeah.
Paula, had you,
I was going to say, while you're up there, just talk a little bit about how does this affect you to solve a case this whole?
It's, well, we can't forget why we're here today, and that's because, Karen had to lose her life. But it was, I'm humbled. We were able to work with a lot of people up here and down south to get the case where it's at. And then for the family, that means the most. Just getting closure for them.
One of the questions I had in reading through this is how he wasn't, I guess he was arrested at the time, but never charged. What was it about his, either did he have an alibi, or why wasn't he charged? Because it seems like there was a lot of fingers pointing in his direction.
I think some of those things some of those things are going to come out in court. We don't want to compromise the prosecution of the case. A lot of those details will come out in court as the case progresses in court.
But was it having the DNA ability now?
The advancements in technology obviously is what led us to where we're at here today.
and it was just DNA evidence, right?
Yes.
Okay. Paula, had you made phone calls?
Come to the center, please.
Obviously, you were 2 months old when this happened to your mom. You had made phone calls, inquired in the past. When was the last time you had done that?
2009, my aunt and I came to the police station because we had put in an article in the Times of a cold case. They had asked if there was any cold cases, call, and since this was Illinois, I didn't think that it would carry into the paper, but it did. And then, excuse me, that generated a couple phone calls to my Uncle Bill, but those didn't pan out. The person that wanted to talk to us said, my husband doesn't want me to talk, but I want to talk to you, and it turned out that that was the man's former sister-in-law. I'm sad that I didn't pursue at that time. I had a young family. They were most important. I could not dive in whole body because we were raising a family and I had to be present in their life. We came back because we had heard that this man's daughter was willing to give her DNA, and my aunt and I were like, all right, we're on. We came back and we were told that the evidence wasn't available. I asked for an exhumation of her body. I was told that wasn't going to happen. I shouldn't say it wasn't going to happen. That's not what that we would do. We felt defeated and went about our lives. And when a phone call came on my phone, I thought, wow, that's an 862 number. I'm not familiar. I Googled it, saw that it was the police station. I answered it, and I heard, is this Paula Larson? And I said, well, who is this? And Investigator Rapaz said, this is me, and this is what's happening. And his words were, I am knee-deep in this case. It was one of the best phone calls I've ever received. And the second best phone call was the other day when they called to tell me that the man was in custody and arrested. Other than that, my father fought from the day he found her till the day he died, trying to bring this to justice, I should say, but he met no success.
How frustrating was that for your family?
I believe my father died way early because of this, because of the fight that he had internally, the knowledge that he 98% felt this was the killer. My family, we talked about it, but not at a dinner table conversation. It was never not talked about when I was old enough. We were all very frustrated, and now all of those have passed on. So that's kind of bittersweet that they're not able to see this firsthand.
Is this for you, because you and your aunt had tried to get this case examined 2009, was that?
Approximately, yes.
To know that we have so far the start of a final resolution, when you're looking at that, what's your message to other investigators out there who to listen to family or to whatnot? Because it sounded like you were like, this is an old case, have a good day at the time.
I can agree with you. We felt defeated, and we felt like we had nowhere else to go. We needed police intervention. We needed things that the file had, because we couldn't do this on our own. We could only show up and speak our voice. For families, like Kevin said, do not give up. Pursue every idea, every thing that you hear, even if you don't feel that it's important. It may be important. It may shock the next investigator into going, why wasn't this looked at before? And what can we do now? Because that's what our investigators did.
We've got about 5 more minutes.
I know you have no memories of your mom, but
Right.
I'm sure you know her by family talk and reputation.
I do.
Tell us about her. She was very young.
Very young. I've heard that she was a very strong human. I've heard that she was fun, that she was very nice. She was beautiful, but I am biased. And her family loved her very, very much. She was an intricate part of the siblings. And when she passed, her entire family suffered immensely. I'm very proud to be her daughter because, the obvious. I'm here, and I have a great family because of that, too.
Have you, if you believe in the power of prayer or speaking to those before us, but have you tried to think about what you might say to her, or have you said anything to her?
I had to drive past the cemetery the other day, and I was alone in the car. I didn't go into the cemetery yet, but I was alone, and I said out loud, Mom and Dad, we got him. Thank you.